have some shared interests, which we do. Even groups like that, there's always some kind of shared interest. But to take Yoga Maya's point to the extreme, they'd probably be very happy to see me stop being a Hare Krishna, come and speak at their events about how bad Hare Krishna was and how they liberated one of their soul from my deviant ways. I'm not going to do that. I think it's kind of like, they're probably getting tired of waiting after 25 years, but that's not going to happen. But we still can work together on certain things. Okay. So next principle, building win-win relationships. Who wants to speak to this briefly, why this is important? In terms of what we talked about this morning. Yes?
No one likes to lose.
No one likes to lose? Okay.
And win-win relationships, it's like everyone can understand. I'm getting something and I'm giving something. So,
okay.
So it's kind of compromise on any subject matter.
Okay, good.
So then we can come closer.
Great, great.
It can last. It can last. It can go on.
Good. Because if I'm not getting some benefit out of something, I'm probably not going to continue. So the government may say, okay, you can do your event one time, but if they're not getting any benefit out of it, why do they want to do it anymore? So you want to look for opportunities where you can both benefit. All right.
Yeah, one of the features of, specific features of Bhakti Yoga is that it is beneficial for all. So unless we find the win-win opportunity, we're not in spiritual consciousness.
Very good. Very good. One thing that's exceedingly nice about doing this within the platform of Bhakti Yoga is that it's doing things skillfully, knowing that at the same time you generally are committed to the mutual benefit of everybody involved. Like I can say after so many years, I actually have some very close friends in the anti-cult movement. It's kind of strange. But there's win-win relationships that's there. Okay? So we need to look for that. How do you know if it's a win-win relationship? What's in terms of what we talked about before? What's the first step in clarifying if it's win-win? What's the first thing you have to do?
Feedback.
Okay, you have to get feedback from them, which we're going to do listing in just a second. Okay, what else?
The other part is eager to cooperate with you.
Okay, how do we know or how do we get there? What's the first question we should ask ourselves?
Asking if you're satisfying both of the interests and needs.
Good. Everybody say together. What are their needs, interests, and concerns? Okay, it's a mantra. Let's do it one more time. What are their needs, interests, and concerns? If you understand what those are, which comes through sometimes on the basis of your own understanding, sometimes you ask people connected to them, sometimes you talk to them directly, sometimes you do some research. And understanding what those needs, interests, and concerns are, then you can make sure you build win-win relationships. Okay, the last one, this is really important, right in line with your point, Raj. As Bhakti Yoga practitioners, as spiritually inclined and aspiring people, that we have to maintain our own exemplary character and behavior. It's not, for instance, in some of these analyses is, okay, what do you say to the media? What do you say to the teenagers? What do you say to the youth? You have to do those things. I want to clarify that. It's not just you make a list of all kinds of lies you can tell them to kind of seduce them into thinking that you're going to help them out. No, you understand what are their needs, and then you look for ways you can put those into practice. And then you explain those. Just like the example I gave of a festival, we understand these things are important for the neighbors, so ideally we're already incorporating all these things in what we're doing for our festival, and we're explaining it to them in this way. Now at the same time, sometimes you might be through the process of this analysis and you realize, well actually, we haven't made any effort to protect their property, we better make sure people don't park on their lawns. So then you have to adjust what the plan is, what the strategy is. So, but that's important. It's got to be based on one's own exemplary character and behavior. How long do relationships last? I live in Washington. This is really setting myself up for a whole discourse, but I won't go there. How long can relationships generally last if they're based on lies? Do they last very long?
Until the lie goes out.
Until
Until the lies becomes
Reveal.
Until it becomes true revealed. Yeah, when people actually understand that they've been cheated. So we have to make sure that everything that we're doing in our communications, that we're acting as an example, both in our character, who we are, and in the way we act, our behavior. So these are like 5 essential principles. Yes, go on.
Well, about this point, I wanted to ask in the last lesson also, if we work on something, building this relationship with somebody that is our key audience, and somebody from our team or from our congregation just blows it up every time. Not maybe intentionally, but it might happen. Like we work on some integrity and exemplary character, and we discover the needs, and we're starting to to work, like for example, with the neighbors, and then somebody comes and does everything like against all the needs of our key audience, and it like can ruin our trust that already.
Yes. Exactly what happens.
Yeah. So what we do? How
You
can we like
you take
communicate with our team
deep,
also?
prayerful shelter of your meditation. You try not to commit any violence upon those people. You try to educate as many people as possible what it really means and how important it is what you're trying to do. And you try strenuously to make sure that whatever organization or entity you represent is actually acting and living like this. Because otherwise it just undermines everything that we do.
And it sometimes feels that it is even more important part in all this building the bridges with others. Because if you do all the work and then somebody just,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
I mean, how do we work with our people that how we make this education?
Yeah, with our, okay, great. With our people, I mean, it gets back to here. Our people, again, I broadened it, but whatever that group of people is, they've got to be clear. This is the values of this organization, this community. This is how we act. This is how we interact with people. And if you're going to be a member of this, especially if you're going to represent this, these are the standards you have to go by. And sometimes, people don't understand that. You have to try to educate them, help them understand better. Yeah. And it's not just theory. It's not just theory. Example, I was asked to go to a city in the United States quite a few years ago. They were involved in a court case. They asked me to come in and help with the media work. And literally, I got out of the car and I walked into the temple, and somebody said, "Oh, nice to see you. Why are you here?" I said, "I'm here to help with your media." And they said, "Oh, they're all demons. There's no point in trying to talk to those people." And then about a half an hour later, I met somebody else. Said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm here to try to work with the media." They said, they ignore us. They don't care about us. You're wasting your time. You might as well go home. I thought, well, they paid for my plane ticket, so, And the third person told me the same thing. 3 people within an hour or so. So I got on the phone. I called the reporter who covered religion for that newspaper. His name was James Franklin. And very friendly on the phone, told him who I was, what I did, and invited him to come. I said I could come to your office, or maybe you could come to our temple. He said I'd be happy to come to the temple. He came the next day. We had Prashad lunch together. I gave him a tour. We talked all about the case. He asked me a lot of questions. And as he was leaving, he said, I've been the religion reporter for this newspaper for 17 years. You're the first one that's ever called me from this community. So, where was the proactivity? They're demoniac people. They don't care about us. They're not spiritual. No, we're just being lazy. Or they're not good people. They don't trust us. Well, maybe they don't trust us because we've been stealing their roses for 50 I wouldn't trust him either. You know? I mean, you read some of the stories in the early days of the movement, like in America, devotees did crazy things. And what really kind of, one of the things that bothers me, sometimes I hear people telling stories about things going on in other parts of the world that maybe in America, more or less, I thought we quit doing 25 years ago when we quit being 20 years old, but they're still being done. So if we're not acting with exemplary character behavior, it just undermines everything we do. And part of the difficulty is that, it kind of gets to your question I meant before, arrogance. We just think, okay, well, we're so good, or I'm so good, or the cause is so good, that, the ends justifies the means. And that's not the case, because the ends should be spiritually based. Let's just talk about it for a second. Is there anywhere in the world today that religious people, in their overzealousness, are causing any problems? The planet's at war with itself. And a big percentage of it is because of religious people. So-called, whatever, however you want to term it. They self-identify as religious people. Let's not try to evaluate them. But they self-identify as religious people. But they're convinced whatever they do, whatever they know is for the good of the world. And if they have to step on a few toes or kill a few people in the process, well, what can be done? It's for the good of the world. And therefore you have Muslim extremists, and Christian extremists, and Jewish extremists, and Buddhist extremists, and Hindu extremists. So the world's a mess. So what does that mean? So that's why we have to say, no, it's got to start with some transcendental foundation there. Some purity. Please.
What do you do if you come across some very Christian people who support, religious extremism and say it's religious terrorism that actually I came across this kind of comments.
There's different levels of extremism. Terrorism, that's one thing. That's active violence. Those people should be in prison and go to jail for a long time. It's actually violent extremism. That's breaking every law of every country in the world. So that's really extreme. So now you're looking specifically at the Christian devotees. You use strong words, extremists. But extremists.
Well, in some comments I heard senior people say about this terrorist activity. Yeah, because they protect the purity of the teachings of Krishna.
Okay, so let me answer that as an individual. I spent a lot of time working on religious freedom issues. I go to hearings, congressional hearings and stuff like that. And I would say that extremism in any circumstance, especially if it's something that's promoting violence against other people, is completely unacceptable in our tradition, and it's a threat to undermining the success and the peace of society at large. Because otherwise, if we say, okay, Vaishnavas, it's okay to use violent extremism, then Muslims should use violent extremism, and other Hindu groups should use violent extremism, and Christians should, and let's just all kill each other. It's crazy. I would say that those people should, it's a longer conversation. But I think that's a gross philosophical deviation to who we are. Yeah. So maybe we'll move on. We can have another conversation about that later. Okay? I think wouldn't everybody in this room, I don't put you on the spot, maybe you're all carrying some machine gun in your room. Wouldn't most of us agree that anytime anyone results to some kind of violent behavior, especially if it's in the name of religious sectarianism, personally, I don't want to have anything to do with the organization that promotes that. Nothing to do with the organization that promotes that. Now somebody might say, okay, wait, your book is spoken on a battlefield. Okay, we know the whole answer to that. That was, how many years were they put into exile? How many times did they try to make peace? How many ways was it? These were, first of all, kings, and they were warriors, responsibility was to run the armies, and they were cheated, and they tolerated it, and they were exiled, and their wife was humiliated, and their, Bhima was attempted to be murdered when he was just a child, young boy, on and on and on, all the way to the point that God himself went and tried to make peace. You know that part of the Mahabharata. Krishna himself went there to meet with Duryodhana. Everybody remember what Duryodhana did at that point? He tried to kidnap him. That's the first time Krishna, at least in that Leela, showed his universal form. Duryodhana tried to kidnap him. Krishna said, "Excuse me, I'm God, you can't do that." And then he went back, and then it was like, okay, that's it. We have no choice but to fight.
And also they actually, it was their rightful claim.
It was their rightful claim. Yeah, they were cheated and somebody went. So that's a totally different, situation. Yeah. Okay? Okay. So, let's go, after that happy topic, yeah.
So, before we move on, could you just give some examples of how Hare Krishna and the Devotee can work together with an anti-cult movement?
How can they work together, anti-cult? Okay. Can you come up and write again? Having once seen her writing, if I was to put something on the board, you'd all walk out and protest. So, what are the needs, interests, and concerns of the anti-sect people? Y'all know roughly what we're talking about? We say anti-sect, anti-cult?
Could we do a definition?
Okay.
Groups that are working to self-destruction of people. There are several points. What is called?
Let's get a working definition for this exercise. They are, and they might prefer cult watching organizations. There's whole studies of them. These are groups of people, some of whom are parents of members of group, some are ex-members of groups, some are scholars who study groups, some are therapists that work with people who are members of groups, who they are organizations who are concerned. There are unhealthy organizations who use manipulative techniques to control people and exploit them within their organizations. Not always religious, sometimes there's therapy cults, there's religious cults, there's political cults like that. So they're concerned that there's people out there causing problems in the name of religion. Raise your hand if you're ever concerned that there's people out there causing problems in the name of religion. Anybody concerned about that? Okay, most of us. So right there we have something in common. So that's the definition. So let's talk about what are some of their needs, interests, and concerns.
To find out this kind of groups.
To find out,
This kind of destructive groups.
okay, to find destructive groups, to identify destructive groups. Okay, what else?
Peace in the society.
They want peace in the society. Good, because these people making trouble.
They want
Good.
to stop-
The people that they're studying making trouble.
stop them.
To stop, what do they want to stop? They want to kill them, what do they want to stop?
Stop their influence.
Okay, good. They want to stop their influence.
Help.
Their negative influence. Right?
Expose them, yeah. Expose them.
Okay, expose the cheating, the harm that's caused. Okay?
Help the victims. of this.
Help the victims. Okay, good. What else?
They want to restore individual autonomy.
Good. They want to restore individual autonomy, give you back your freedom. You've been controlled by this group like that. Okay, good. What else?
Attack.
Good. They want to protect people. Good. Good. They might say they want to promote family values. They're afraid that they're breaking down families.
That sounds a bit contradictory, but wouldn't they want to increase their members?
Yeah, everybody wants to increase their members. Okay. Yeah. I've got some stories about that too.
And not the
Yeah, they also want to increase their members. Yeah. Okay. What else might they want to do?
Afraid that there will be bigger problems, so they want to prevent that.
So they want to prevent the growth of this problem. Okay, good. So could you say they want to promote healthy organizations?
Yes.
Is that the one? They want to promote healthy organizations?
They also want to, they want people to stop using God as an excuse to not take responsibility for their actions. So they want people to be...
Okay, promote individual responsibility? Okay, okay, good. Okay, good. So you're all signed up. You can join. That's a good list. If you have those values, they'd be happy to have you. Okay, so, thank you. So they want to identify destructive groups, promote peace, stop the negative influence, expose cheating, help the victims, restore autonomy, protect people, family values, etc. And let me say, overall, they kind of want to study the problem. Okay, they want to study and understand the problem better. Okay, is there any win-win in there for us?